Okay, welcome to the Shiur in Pirkei Avos. We begin, of course, as we do every time, Kol Yisrael Yesh Lehem Chelik Olam Haba. All of Israel has a share in the world to come. Shenemar, as it says in the pasuk, Va'amech Kulam Tzadikim. Your entire nation is righteous. La'olam Yirshu Aretz. They shall forever inherit the land. Netzer Mata'ai, they are the branch of my planting. Ma'aseh Yodai lehispa'er. Hashem says they are the work of my hands that I may be glorified. And when we are called Netzer Mata'ai, that means we're the Yetzer, the creation of a planting, the branch of planting. And planting implies growth. And that's what this study of Pirkei Avos is all about. It's all about the concept of growing and being a little bit clearer about our closeness to each other, to the Torah, to Hashem. We're all one. Let's go on with our Mishnah in Perek Aleph, which we started the other day, and we're going to the next Mishnah after this, because we already spoke about Yehuda ben Tabai and Shimon ben Shetach as being the third pair of Zugos. One was the Av Bezdin and one was the Nasi. And there was a discussion, as we mentioned, about who was which one. But we discussed Yehuda ben Tabai and his beautiful teaching in the Perek. And now we're going to the statement of Shimon ben Shetach. Says the Mishnah, Shimon ben Shetach Omer. Shimon, the son of Shetach, says, Heve marbe lach kor es ha'edim. It would seem self-evident, but Shimon ben Shetach is saying, have a marbe, increase as much as you can, lach kor es ha'edim, to make a chakira, an investigation of any people who come as witness to give testimony. Make sure that you do all you can to vet them, that they are acceptable as Eidim. It's interesting that in the United States of America, if there's a jury trial, the lawyers spend a lot of time choosing a jury. And they're going to ask all kinds of questions of the jury. When it comes to the witnesses, they will try to make the witnesses look good if they're the defendant, and try to make them look bad if they're coming against what they want. But they do spend an inordinate amount of time on the jurors, while Shimon ben Shetach is saying, okay, the judges are going to be fair when the statements come out, but make sure that the Eidim are deeply investigated. Chakira means to investigate them. You have to make a lot of Derisha and Chakira, a lot of asking questions and investigating to make sure the witnesses are beyond perjury. And we'll see why later. The next statement he says is, Ve'heve zoyer bidvarecha, and be very careful about your words. Shema mitocham yilmedu l'shaker. Be careful when you ask the questions of the Eidim. Be careful how you put the questions. You can mislead the Eidim into saying the wrong things. And a Jew is not allowed to do that. A judge is not allowed to do that. So you have to investigate the Eidim very carefully, and you have to do everything you can to see that your questioning doesn't lead them to figure out how to outwit the system and lie. Now, as our custom is when we discuss a Mishnah, and we want to understand why specifically this idea is mentioned as the outstanding feature of the teachings of Shimon ben Shetach, we need a little historical background. Now, we mentioned when we discussed Yehuda ben Tabai and Shimon ben Shetach that they both lived at the time after Hanukkah, the Hashmonaim, which were a family of Kohanim Gedolim, Matisyo Kohen Gadol, Hashmonai Uvanav. And a little bit later on in the generations, not too much after this, there was a split in the Hashmonai family, and one of the sons of the Hashmonai leadership actually went, Aristobulus went and killed the brother in order to take over the kingship. Now remember, Kohanim are not supposed to be kings, but they wanted the kingship. And one of them, actually, Aristobulus killed his brother. And Yanai, after he died, took over, and Yanai Hamelech went and married the wife of the brother that just died. And the wife of the brother that just died was none other than Shlomtzion Hamalka. She was known by her name, Shlomtzion Hamalka, and she was a righteous queen. She was a righteous woman. There are streets named after her, by the way, in Eretz Yisrael, Yerushalayim, Yer HaKodesh. Some very, very famous streets, Shlomtzion Hamalka it's called. It's in downtown Yerushalayim. Any of you who've been there might remember that particular street. But Shlomtzion Hamalka, who was the wife of Yanai Hamelech, was the sister of Shimon ben Shetach. She was the sister of Shimon ben Shetach. Now there was an incident in the kingship, in the kingdom at that time, which is brought down in the Yerushalmi, that there were 300 Nazirim, 300 people who vowed to be Nazarites, and they were poor and couldn't afford to bring the karbanos. So they went to Shimon ben Shetach and they asked him if it's possible to annul the vow that they made as being Nazarites. And Shimon ben Shetach was able to find an excuse to annul the vows of 150 of them. He was able to annul most of them, a good portion of them. But the others he couldn't. And he couldn't afford the karbanos, and they couldn't afford it. So there was a deal struck as to who would pay for the karbanos of these Nazirim so that they can come back into society, because a Nazir can't come back into society unless he brings the karban of a Nazir. And Yanai, the Melech, promised to give part, and Shimon ben Shetach promised to give the other part. Ultimately, Shimon ben Shetach was not able to raise the money for the other part, and Yanai the king got so incensed at him, he decided that he was going to persecute him, and he was going to persecute all the Rabbanim, and Yanai went on a killing rampage against many of the Rabbanim, and Shimon ben Shetach had to go into exile in Egypt. At about this time, Persian diplomats came to see Yanai Hamelech, and they couldn't stop talking about one of the king's old advisors, and they wondered where he was. They said, where is Shimon ben Shetach, that great sage whose words of wisdom so inspired us? Everything he said was so perfect and apropos for the needs that we had. He always guided us in the right way. Where is he? And Yanai felt very, very bad. He didn't know what to do. So he said to Shlomtzion Hamalka said to him, listen, if you want, I can find out where my brother is, but if I bring him back, you have to promise me you're not going to harm a hair on his head. You're going to treat him as a prince should be treated. And Yanai promised. And sure enough, Shimon ben Shetach came back. Now we're going to take a look at the Gemara now, and we're going to see in this Gemara, if we can get this Gemara up here. There it is. It's on Daf Memches in Brachos. And if you'll follow along with me, it's a little bit below. It's actually right in the middle. Stop right there. There's a dot in the Gemara. Where is it now? Right there by the dot. It says the word Be'inan and there's a dot straight ahead. There it is. Okay, there we go. Okay. The Gemara in Brachos on Daf Memches tells the following story. Yanai Malka Umalkasa. This is at this point when Shimon ben Shetach was needed. Yanai Malka Umalkasa, King Yanai and his queen Shlomtzion Amalka, Krichu Rifta. They were breaking bread. They were eating a meal, Bahadei Adodi, together. Umedekata lahu l'Rabbanon, and because Yanai had killed out all the rabbis, lo havale inish lebruchi lahu. There were no people left to lead the benching. There were no rabbis to lead the benching. Amalo lidvisu. He said to his wife, Man yoevlon gavra the mivrachlon. Who's going to get for us a great rabbi, a gavra, that's going to make a bracha for us? Amralei, she said to him, Ishtabali, do you swear to me, the maisina l'cha gavra, that if I bring to you an important person, delo mitzadaslei, that you won't trouble him, you won't seek to kill him, you won't persecute him? Can you do that for me? Ishtabala. So he swore to her. Says the Gemara, I see say l'Shimon ben Shetach achua. She went and sent and brought back Shimon ben Shetach, her brother. Osevei ben didei lididah. And he was sat down in between the king and the queen. There were 3 seats. The king was on one side, the queen was on the other side, and Shimon ben Shetach was in the middle. Amalei. He said to him, Chazia kamas kama yikra avdina loch. Do you see the great kavod that I did for you, says the king to Shimon ben Shetach? Look at this great kavod. I put you up here on the throne right between me and Shlomtzion Amalka. Amalei. So Shimon ben Shetach said to him, Lav at komokrisli. It's not you that are giving me the honor. Ela oraisa, he democracy. It's the Torah knowledge that I possess that gives me the kavod. Diksiv, and he brings a raya from a pasuk in Mishlei, where Shlomo HaMelech said the following words: Sal Salah, if you hug it, usromemeka, it will raise you high. Ticha betcha, it will honor you. Ki tidbakena, when you cling to it. So Shimon ben Shetach says to Yanai HaMelech, you think that you're the one who's giving me the covet. The fact is, you only called me because of the Torah that I know. And it's the Torah that's giving me the covet, because if you embrace it, it will give you covet. As Shlomo HaMelech says, one who embraces the Torah and hugs it and treasures it, ultimately, Tiromemcha, it will raise you up. The Torah will raise you up. Amalei, so he said to him, really, he said to his wife, to her, he said, Kachozis deloma kabel morus. Do you see, he doesn't accept my leadership? Look at this. I give him a praise and says, look at this honor I gave you. And he says, no, it's not you who's honoring me. It's the Torah that honors me. He doesn't accept my leadership. Anyway, says the Gemara. Yavule kasa lebruchi. So he gave him the cup of wine to lead the benching. Omar, so Shimon ben Shetach said, Heichi avarech, how can I lead the benching? Baruch she'achal, Heichi avarech, how should I lead the benching? Should I say, Baruch she'achal yanei v'chaveirav mishalo? Should I say, blessed is Yanai and his friends that they ate? I didn't eat anything. You gave me nothing to eat. And now you want me to lead the benching? So you know what he did? Shasye lahi kasa. So he drank out the cup of wine. Yavule kasa achrina. They gave him another cup of wine. Ubrich. And he led the benching. Okay, that's the story. Now you should know that there's a halachic aspect to this particular story that is not la halacha, because what Shimon ben Shetach did is he drank from the cup of wine and he led the benching. When the din is, if you drink a cup of wine at a Sheva Brachos, you can be counted amongst the 10 and you can answer to the benching. But unless you eat from the bread at the meal, you can't possibly lead the benching. You can answer, but you can't lead. Yanai was of the opinion Shimon ben Shetach was of the opinion, if you have wine, it's enough. We don't paskin like that. We paskin that in order to lead the benching, you have to have enough bread. Anyway, what do we see? We see from this particular story the value of Shimon ben Shetach and how great he was. In fact, the Gemara in Kedushin says that Shimon ben Shetach was responsible for Machzir HaTorah Liyoshna, that Shimon ben Shetach was the one who brought back the crown of the Torah to its original state, because Shimon ben Shetach went around teaching and instructing many Talmidim. What he did is he established a new rule. He established the rule that children and teenagers shouldn't just learn from their fathers, but they should get together in yeshiva where there's chavrusa and where there's rabbanim and rabbeim, and they'll be able to learn from them. And because they will be able to learn from them, they'll become great people. Now, the Gemara in Sanhedrin, which we don't have in front of us, and we don't need it, we can go back to the Mishnah. The Gemara in Sanhedrin tells us an interesting event that happened with Shimon ben Shetach, which gives us an indication of some of his greatness. Shimon ben Shetach was told about a coven of witches. They practiced witchcraft. As we know, the pasuk says, "Mechashefa lo sechaya," that a person who practices witchcraft is not allowed to live. And even though it refers to a witch, meaning a male also, it puts it in the female, says the Rashi on the pasuk, because as we see throughout Shas, the majority of those who practiced witchcraft at that time were females. And they practiced witchcraft. Now, there was a coven of 80 of them that practiced witchcraft, and Shimon ben Shetach was determined to rid Klal Yisrael from these 80 witches. He was determined that they were not going to destroy Klal Yisrael because of their witchcraft, which brings about curse for the Jewish people. So he had a plan. The Gemara in Sanhedrin tells us that he got 80 strong young Talmidei Chachamim, big strong Talmidei Chachamim, Gavra Rabbis that were powerful, and he swore them to secrecy and told them, I have a mission that I want you to go on. We're going to try to capture the witches and bring them to judgment. And when the Sanhedrin decides that they're guilty, if and when they decide they're guilty, we'll be rid of them from Klal Yisrael, and the Jewish people will be able to have peace. And he had to go to the cave where the witches were in order to get them out. So he went, and he went to the cave, the Gemara says, and the witches said to him, what are you doing here? We're going to put a curse on you. So he said, I've come to teach you some witchcraft. I'm sure you're interested in learning new things. I can teach you a piece of witchcraft that you yourselves don't know. Now, he had told these 80 young men that they had to wait outside the cave. And when he gave the signal, they were to come in. He purposefully chose that day because that day it was a total washout. The rain was going to rain from morning till night with a vengeance. I don't know if you've ever been in Eretz Israel. When it rains heavy, it comes down in sheets. And here it was coming down that way. And Shimon ben Shetach went into the cave and he told the witches, I have a witchcraft to teach you that you're going to be amazed at. And they said, okay, we'll give you one chance. Otherwise, we cast a spell on you. He said, I'm going to bring you 80 young men instantaneously with all the rain that's going on outside. They are going to come in and you'll see they'll be dry as a whistle. They will not have one drop on them. He had made up with these 80 men that they should cover themselves totally over with, raincoats that would drip off the rain. And that at his signal, they would all rush into the cave and leave their raincoats outside. And sure enough, he said, watch this. And he made his motions with his hands. And instantly, the 80 young men appeared in the cave dry as a bone. Dry as a bone. And they immediately went over to the witches. And each of the 80 strong men took one of the witches and picked her up. Because Shimon ben Shetach told them, when a witch doesn't have her feet on the ground, she can't cast a spell. So they immediately picked up the 80 ill at once and lifted them off the ground. So now they were in the clutches of Shimon ben Shetach and his 80 young men. And they carried the witches like that right to the Beis Din. And the Beis Din took them to task, and ultimately all 80 were wiped out. That's not the end of the story. One of the relatives of the witches decided to take vengeance against Shimon ben Shetach, and he hired 2 witnesses to report that Shimon ben Shetach's son was chayiv misa by the Beis Din. He did something. He was mechalel Shabbos b'far Hesya with warning, and they told him what's going to happen. And they warned him about it, and they went to the Beis Din, and the Beis Din heard their testimony, and they debated the issue, and came up with the psak that the son of Shimon ben Shetach is chayiv misa, because the Eidim were investigated, they had their words clear, they knew exactly what to say, and they were sentenced to death. No sooner were they sentenced to death than the Eidim recanted. And they changed their minds. And they said, we lied. We lied. But the din is that once an Eid gives testimony, it's a halacha in the Torah, in the Gemara, Kivin shehigid, shuveinu chozer umagid. Once you give testimony and it's accepted by the Beis Din and they give forth with the psak, you can't change your testimony. And the son of Shimon ben Shetach could have found a way out, but he said that he was willing to die al Kiddush Hashem to show that the Beis Din has a power and to show that Eidim have to be dealt with very carefully. And not long after that, Shimon ben Shetach went around saying, have a marbelach kor es ha'edim. You've got to do everything you can to go and investigate Eidim. Because if you don't investigate carefully, it's entirely likely that someone can get killed with false testimony. Unfortunately, in the United States of America, there have been numerous instances where people on death row have been saved at the last moment by virtue of testimony that was, you might say, held back or hidden or lied, and there were DNA tests that came to fore that proved without a shadow of a doubt that a man who spent 25 years in prison for murder that he never committed was about to be killed. And Shimon ben Shetach is therefore saying, have a marbe lachko es ha'edim. You got to be very, very careful to investigate always the edim. Now, the Gemara in Bava Metzia tells another story about Shimon ben Shetach that is so valuable because it gives us an indication of the nature of what Shimon ben Shetach was able to accomplish in his life. The Gemara tells us that Shimon ben Shetach was asking his Talmidim that he has some heavy furniture to move and he needs a good, strong donkey that can carry the objects from one place to another. And they investigated and they found a Yishmaeli, a Taya. They found an Arab who owned a very strong donkey and was willing to sell it. And Shimon ben Shetach agreed on the price, and he took the donkey. And the Talmidim went to pick up the donkey, and they bring the donkey to Shimon ben Shetach, and he starts loading on the packages onto the donkey. When one of the students takes a look around the neck of the donkey, hidden in the neck hairs, was a necklace with a big diamond that was until that point hidden from view. And all the Talmidim said, Rebbe, look at what your master, the Rebbeinu Shalom, did for you. You spent $1,000 on a donkey, and here's a diamond worth $1 million. Look what Hashem did for you, that you have a donkey that came with so much wealth. And Shimon ben Shetach said, wait a minute. I bought a donkey, not a diamond. He went back to the Yishmaeli. He went back to the Arab. He took the diamond and he gave it to the Arab donkey owner. He said, listen, I bought from you a donkey. I did not buy the diamond. Here is your diamond. It belongs to you. And from that day on, the donkey driver, the Arab, went around through all the streets of his town. Baruch Hashem Elokim de Shimon ben Shetach. Blessed is God, the master, the God of Shimon ben Shetach. And Shimon ben Shetach said, you see, to make a Kiddush Hashem is worth everything. And that's why Shimon ben Shetach said the next statement, Veheve Zohir bidvarecha. Be careful with your words. And this is just one example. Because if I'm not careful, people can come up with the wrong idea. Shema vitocham yilmedu l'shaker. Person could say, oh yeah, I bought the donkey, there was a hidden diamond, it's mine. Finders keepers, losers weepers. Shimon ben Shetach said, no. That's not the way we do things. That's not the way a Jew conducts oneself. A Jew conducts oneself by having mar belach kores ha'edim, and to go into every piece of testimony with care to make a Kiddush Hashem, because that's the purpose of our lives. Mirz Hashem, tomorrow night, we're going to continue with this Mishnah and try to explain other aspects of the statement of Shimon ben Shetach, of Hevei mar belach kores ha'edim, and Hevei zor bidvarecha shema mitocham yilmedu l'shaker. Yashikayach for this particular part of joining with us on the Shiur with Pirkei Avos tonight. We're going now to the Mishnayos. We stopped the